California's Gold is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. He was born on a ranch in rural Oklahoma and became one of the most famous and popular people in the world. He started off as a trick roper in traveling rodeos, then spent many years in the Ziegfeld Follies. His humorous comments on the news of the day soon made him a famous Cracker Barrel philosopher, and he gained a wide audience as a radio commentator, newspaper columnist, and movie star. Huell Rogers was truly an American original, and a big chapter in his life was spent right here in California. Huell made his home in Beverly Hills during the early 20s, but in 1922 bought property above Sunset Boulevard, a weekend cottage out in the country in present-day Pacific Palisades. By 1928, Huell, his wife Betty, and their 3 children moved to the ranch full-time. And it was here they lived until his untimely death in a plane crash in 1935. Today, the ranch is still here, almost exactly as it was when the Rogers family lived there. And a visit to Huell Rogers State Park takes us back in time and allows us to glimpse at the simple life Huell and his family loved so much. Well, here we are. It's an absolutely beautiful morning here in Southern California, and we're standing at what has to be one of the most historic and wonderful places in our entire state. Michael Allen, you're with the California State Park System. This is a real gem, isn't it?
This is Huell Rogers State Historic Park, where Huell Rogers and his family lived from 1928 until 1935.
And we're standing here with a member of the Rogers family, Jim Rogers. Jim, your dad and your mom and your brothers and your sisters all call this place home. What's it like for you when you come back?
Well, it brings back a lot of memories, a lot of things. I know at the time Mother gave it to the state, everybody wasn't in quite full accord, but it was her wish and her desire, and as the years have gone by, it was a wonderful thing, and I'm so very thankful that she did.
Because what it has done has opened up this wonderful place that was a personal family place for you, and allowed Californians and people from all over the world to come and see the way the family lived.
To see other people coming here and enjoying it, it's a real pleasure, a real thrill, because we love this place. We had such a wonderful time here, and it's great to see other people enjoying it, to see the use of the polo field, to see people riding around here, walking around here, seeing the house. It makes you feel very good.
Oh boy, now we're inside. What would this was the main room.
This was it. There were originally 2 bedrooms down here, another one back there. The kitchen is over here, and that's all there was.
Yeah.
This room, you might say, from the wall there, and that was a bedroom and a bedroom in back of it.
So really,
we could camp out here. We could stay here over a weekend or Christmas vacation, or something like that.
So it was originally built kind of as a camp.
Well, just a place to stay, yeah. And Mother, we had sold the house in Beverly Hills, had torn it down for the termite fight. And
for the what?
We found termites in our Beverly Hills house. And they looked for termites, and they found more and more and more until they tore the whole house down.
Oh. So you were kind of forced to move out here.
Bill and I and Mary never knew for sure whether Dad imported the termites or not, because he wanted to move out here.
And that was a good excuse.
That's when we built that house and actually moved out.
Full time.
Full life. We lived for about 7 or 8 months in the Beverly Hills Hotel in a cottage while this house was being finished.
Now, looking around in here, is all of this kind of the way it looked?
Pretty much. Mother went to Barker Brothers, and she got on a Monterey furniture kick. And she bought all kinds of Monterey furniture. She loved that. And you can see it all over in this room. It was in the bedrooms. We used a lot of Monterey furniture. Mother thought that was neat.
Can we walk around here, Michael, and see some of this? Because there's a lot of beautiful...
Now this is the Monterey piece here.
This couch.
Monterey type, yes. This is another one.
All of this furniture right here.
Most all of it. These three big chairs.
And I've already been instructed by Michael that we can't walk on these rugs because, Michael, these are original Navajo rugs.
That's right. Will Rogers was a quarter Cherokee, so a lot of the objects in the house are representative of various Native American tribes. The rugs are Navajo. The grain basket over here is Apache.
Let's go over and look at this. This is absolutely beautiful. He would bring these things back with him from journeys that he would take.
This here is a museum quality basket. There are very few baskets of this size, and this one happens to be Apache.
Now, this is very authentic. This is authentic as well. What the heck was this?
That was a calf, and Dad wanted a calf to rope at, so Ed Boreen had that done for him. And he sat in the room, and Dad had a saddle on a stand like that. And he would sit here and practice roping.
He would, in other words, this actually sat in your living room?
Oh, yes. And you can see the ears are gone. They got roped off.
Do you get a lot of comments from visitors about this?
We do. A lot of people want to know about the stuffed calf. So the story is that Will liked to play tricks on his friends by roping them when they came over to visit him. And Ed Boreen gave this to him as a joke so that Will could say, now you have something to rope beside your friends when they come to see you.
I gotcha. And I've seen a picture of you seated right in front of that fireplace. I think your mom and dad were over in here, but you were seated with a calf,
Right.
a live calf, in the living room.
Very much alive.
Now, what's that story?
Dad had gone to the King Ranch in Texas. And when he came home, they shipped him a little Bramer calf, a heifer calf. She came out in a crate in the railroad. And Dad named her Sarah for Sarah Clayburgh, one of the King family. And we raised her here until she became a pretty good sized calf.
But there was never any question in your family that it was okay to bring a calf into the living room?
Well, let's say that was not a daily occurrence. And because you found some pictures of it, I think it's obvious that somewhere down the line we had somebody here taking pictures. Like many of the pictures you see, they were kind of staged.
I gotcha. This was all kind of part of the Will Rogers mystique.
That's right. But she lived right here around the house. She was very gentle, and we did bring her in occasionally.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, this, when you look up here, Louis, this almost looks like it's very rustic. It's almost barn-like. There's nothing fancy about this place.
It is very barn-like. And if you had to maintain it, you'd find out how barn-like it is.
You agree with that, Michael?
That's true. By the way, Huell, I wanted to point out the animal skins. These are skins that were given to Will by big game hunters that were friends of his. Will was not a hunter. He didn't like to hunt. In fact, Will didn't even own a gun. So I just wanted to point that out, that these are gifts that were given to Will.
Will Rogers did not own a gun.
No. He's a cowboy without a gun.
I'm trying to get the vision of your dad maybe sitting with you all sitting around telling you all stories about some of his adventures. Would he report back to you when he would come back from these places?
Dad was a very strange man. He never reminisced. The things I learned from him and heard from him were things like when I was growing up, and I'd be sitting on a horse and put my leg over the saddle horn. And he'd look around and he'd say, "Jim, if Papa saw a cowboy doing that, he'd fire him." That meant get your bloody leg back down where it belongs.
Yeah.
But that's the way he told you things.
He was a gentleman, wasn't he?
Yes, in many ways. He could lose his temper too. But no, he wasn't a man that reminisced. He never told a lot of stories about himself growing up, his dad, or anything else. Most of them I've heard from other people.
Yeah.
He never used to preach much either. And he never talked much about his work.
So when he came home, he came home.
Oh, that's right. When he was here, he was here.
Yeah.
And the only thing we did have every night, don't care what goes on, Amos and Andy comes on.
On the radio.
Amos and Andy were a must in this house.
Now we're back outside under the veranda here, I guess you'd call it, and this is a beautiful, there's a fireplace here. It was just kind of a little patio area here.
That's right. This was a patio, and we always had a big table in front of the fire. And when the weather was nice and so forth, we would eat out here a great deal. We used to barbecue out here. My mother had the bright idea, I think she got it from maybe a drive-in or something, an awning that is up here, and you can pull it across.
Oh, look. You're right. This awning could be pulled right across here.
That's right. That was Mother's idea. She had that. The other thing, you're close to the ocean here, and you get a lot of fog, and you get a lot of damp evenings, and it was kind of nice with that and the big fire here, and it made it very nice to sit out here. We love to sit out and eat.
Now we've come upstairs to visit, I guess this was ground zero right here, wasn't it, Jim? This was your dad's office, his study.
Yeah, more or less you'd call it that. This was his room. He had a few things in here. Had his typewriter, his desk, all of his things. One thing I might mention right now, you don't see any filing cabinets. He never had a gag file.
Really?
He did not keep a lot of copies of things.
So they were spontaneous?
No, but they stayed in his head.
And as a kid, were you in here a lot, or was this kind of off limits because it was Dad's office, his study?
Well, it was really off limits most of the time because we didn't want to come up here.
Why not?
Why?
Yeah.
You know, watching a man, I don't care how clever and talented he is, write a column on a typewriter, it's sort of like watching paint dry. Mm-hmm. Very exciting.
So this is where he would write his column, right up here?
A lot of times, yes. Actually, he wrote his columns all over. He wrote them in his head. Mm-hmm. He'd saddle up a horse, go for a ride. He'd come back and he'd have several ideas for columns. And he'd work them out there. Then he'd come in and he'd just bang them out. Mm-hmm. But he had them all in his head before he started. He worked very, very hard.
And look what we've got up here, Michael. You've got, are these really a pair of his boots?
They're Huell's boots, size 9.5. Everything in here is original. This is really a national treasure.
Yeah, Jimmie Rogers' study. I'm just looking over here at this wonderful, this sculpture here, the pictures on the wall. It's really got a wonderful feel to it.
Yep. Now that's a bronze that he sent back from Russia on his first trip over there.
Now we're taking a look at a room that I don't think many people get a chance to see. This has to be one of the most unusual places in the house, Jim.
Yeah. Although most houses have them.
Well, I know, but they don't have something like this. What's the story on this? How did your dad come up with this? This is like a wraparound shower here with the water coming out all around you.
That's right, and vague recollection is, I can't say this for sure, but that, I believe, came out of a shower in the Beverly Hills house, and they put it in here.
Now, did you ever take a shower in there?
Yes, I have, and it's not all as shiny as it looks.
What do you mean, as shiny as it looks?
Well,
It's
you've
not all
got
it's cut
water
out to
coming
be.
out in all kinds of directions, and I kind of prefer the one on top. Now, years ago, this was where my room was.
Down here?
Down here, with a bathroom in between and Bill's room next.
I thought this was your mom's
This
sitting room.
This part here was.
Uh-huh.
Then she decided to open it up, put a piano there, and made a nice living room out of it, which nobody used.
But you tell people on the tour that this kind of reflected Mrs. Rogers' taste in here.
This Mrs. Rogers wanted this to be a combination family room, music room, and library. And Mrs. Rogers was also a music teacher. She played piano, she played mandolin, violin, and banjo. She's very refined and elegant.
You know, we don't hear that much about your mom, do
No,
we?
you don't.
And there was a real story there as well.
Well, I have to say it this way, as Bill and Mary and I have said all our lives. If it hadn't been for Betty Blake from Rogers, Arkansas, you'd never seen a Will Rogers.
Really? She was responsible for...
99% of it, believe me.
Really? In
Yeah.
what way? What do you mean?
The encouragement, she pushed him on to do things, kept him on a good track. She was, I guess you say, a helpmate. She was way more than that. Just didn't just help him, she packed him a lot of the way. And Mother was so supportive. She turned her whole life over for Will Rogers. And she was very successful in doing it. A wonderful woman. Very strong, very determined, and always stood in the background. But boy, she was there.
Huell, now is a good time, I think, to mention the fact that if it wasn't for Mrs. Rogers, this would not be a state historic park. It was because of the vision of Mrs. Rogers in 1944 that she deeded this over to the state of California. That's why the public is able to enjoy it today.
Yeah, and the tours are going to start in just a few minutes.
That's right.
They come through here. We continue our own personal tour here given by Jim Rogers. Jim, we're standing here under this wonderful old tree looking out at the polo field out here. What in the world was this connection between your dad and polo?
Well, he got the polo bug, and I don't know for sure, probably not, it was before 1915, because that's the year I was born. And he was already playing then, so I guess about 1914. He played a little bit. Then the World War I came along. After that, he moved out here. He started playing again, playing at Middick with Hal Roach and a number of other people, and decided he's going to build a polo field here when he bought this place.
So he really was interested in getting this whole polo thing going.
He was a great enthusiast of it. He worked very hard on and for many of the schools that had polo projects, you know, Arizona State, New Mexico Military, Culver, so on, Stanford. And that was one of his things.
Isn't that interesting that a cowboy from Oklahoma would be interested in polo?
Well, he loved polo.
Yeah.
And if you've ever played a lot, if you like a good horse and you like a little excitement and a little fun, it's a whale of a game.
Now, we are walking into what used to be the golf course. Today it's just, I guess, used as a big, green, wonderful area where people just kind of hang out.
It is. It's a very wonderful golf course. We now use it for it's the historic area.
Is it still used as a golf course?
No, you don't play golf here anymore.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
We got some of the sand traps.
Oh, look, those are the original sand traps over there.
There are sand traps there, yep. A couple up here. There was another green way down yonder across the polo field, and one over the hill there in that canyon. So you had quite a selection of how you could play.
Yeah. Boy, this has a wonderful look to it right here, too. Just looking at the house, the way it's set here on the side of the hill. It really has a nice
It
look.
just fits in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just fits in. Now we've come to a very interesting part of this ranch. Explain exactly where we are now, Michael.
Well, right now we're standing in front of the historic barn. That's what Will called it. Although it's a barn, it's larger than most people's house.
Boy, that is a beautiful, beautiful building, and that's a historic building in itself.
It is historic. There's a rotunda with 19 stalls, and this barn was actually disassembled and purchased from San Fernando Valley. Will brought it over here and reassembled it.
Well, we still got horses here.
That's right.
And we still got, what was this out here?
Well, this is one of the historic riding rings. Will had a lot of roping and riding rings, and across the way over here was historically, that was the hay barn, and then on the other side of those trees you can't see the house, but that was the foreman's stables and the mule barn.
So there was a lot going on back in the back of the ranch as well.
More back here than any place.
What was
Really?
going on back here?
Well, we had all the horses. We had some cattle here most of the time. We had a bunch of goats. And this is where we roped and where we rode. And most of us spent most of our time at the barn.
I have seen a lot of photographs and a lot of old movies of you and your brothers and your sisters and your friends out here looking like you're having a ball.
We did. It was a great place to live, really great.
So with a normal day, you just get out and ride around and...
Well, used to have, with 3 of us playing, we had somewhere between 15 and 18 head of polo horses. Somebody had to exercise them, and I used to get that job most of the time. We used to come up here and rope a lot. We used to just ride.
And speaking of roping, we brought a guy up here today. Howdy, how you doing?
Fine, thanks.
Huell Hauser.
Well, nice to meet you, Huell.
Introduce yourself to everybody and tell everybody why we invited you here today.
My name is Tom Marr, and I've been a docent here for a number of years now. And I entertain the guests when they come, mostly children, and show them the kind of roping that Will Rogers used to do.
And you got into this roping because of Will Rogers.
Absolutely. I came here, it was about the time I retired with my wife, and I saw the movie of Will Rogers made in 1925, and I couldn't get over it. I said,
Is
"What's
that the
man?"
movie called The Roper?
The Roping Fool.
Yeah, now that's the movie where I saw that movie. He was walking down a street doing a rope trick, walking in and out of the rope while he walked.
The running Texas skip. He was actually walking real fast and doing it, and he was great at the Texas skip.
So he was really a very good roper.
Probably one of the best trick ropers. There were a number of good ones, but he was one of the best.
Well, let's see a little bit. We're standing, look at this barn, by the way. Look at the ceiling. This is a beautiful, beautiful, did you call it the stable? What did you call it?
We called it a barn.
Well, let's take a look at what you're doing. Are we going to do some Will Rogers tricks?
I'll show you some of the tricks that Will used to do. He used to enjoy, and they all have names, so I'll tell you what the names are while I'm doing it.
Okay.
And this first trick is called the butterfly. It's one turn on each side.
The butterfly.
Yeah, and then you take it around the back there, and it's called an arrowhead. You take it around this side, same kind of thing. Now this is called an arm juggle. He did all tricks like that. Oops, I'm sorry.
Well, even Will Rogers didn't do them all perfectly all the time.
Will Rogers loved horses. In fact, one of his favorite sayings was, "There's something wrong with a man that don't like a horse."
Is that the way he would have said it?
Very much. And he said it in many different ways.
Yeah. Well, we're standing here with two of these good old horses. And what are we going to do, Lisa? What are we getting ready to do? What kind of an adventure are we going to have to kind of end this day at Will Rogers State Historic Park?
We're going to take you up the trail to Inspiration Point so you can see the city and all the beautiful mountains that we have surrounding us. The Santa Monica
we've got a
Mountains.
lot of acreage here. How big is this park, Michael?
It's 186 acres. Originally, it was about a 400-acre ranch.
Boy, this is beautiful country up here.
Yes, it is. It's the Santa Monica Mountains behind us on the right. And we're approaching Inspiration Point.
Now, all of these points have names to them?
Well, I think they do. This one's Inspiration Point, and you have a view of the city and the ocean, and Catalina when it's a clear day. But
and this is your job?
This is my job. I get paid to ride horses.
Okay, we're back up here, fellas. We came up on our own. We left you flatlanders. We let y'all come up here by car. We came up the way your dad would have come up,
That's
Jim.
right, and you look good up there.
Well, how would he have used these trails? How would he have traversed this country?
He just rode all over. And he found a different way, so they built another trail.
So would
But he enjoyed riding, and he enjoyed looking around and looking at the country, and then he could get off by himself and think.
Would he have, what would he have done? Just head out on his own up through here?
Yeah. And he liked to look at country. And if we jump a couple of deer, he'd watch them, or any other wildlife, the birds and so forth. But he liked to be alone and get away from everybody. No phone, nobody bothering him. And then he could think, and he'd lay out his story ideas.
While he was riding up in these very mountains? Well, we remember him. Thank you, sir.
I'm glad you do.
He was quite a man, wasn't he?
That he was. And a lot of people will say to me, you know, how is it living with a man like that, a famous man? I don't know, he's the only one I ever lived with. I never lived with anybody else. The only father I ever knew, but I couldn't have asked for a better one. He was really, to me, he was a great guy.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727 and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.